Think about light from sun. It travels 93 million miles through the vacuum of space in about 8 minutes. And then it hits your glass window and passes right through as if the glass barely exists. Now think about your hand. Press it against the same window. It stops, right? Completely, instantly. Light and your hand both encounter the same glass. One passes through the glass as if it barely exists. The other is stopped. Why? Because one is light and one is hand. That seems obvious. Sure, but what does obvious actually mean here? What's different about them? One is made of photons, another one is made of atoms. Different stuff. Okay, both are made of particles. Both are mostly empty space. Your hand is 99.999% nothing. So what is it fundamentally that lets one pass through and stops the other? Forces, electromagnetic repulsion, electrons push electrons. That's what almost everyone thinks. And they are missing the entire point here. Here's a different way to think about it. The universe doesn't have one set of rules for how things occupy space. It has two completely different geometries. One geometry says you can pass through, and the other says you cannot. And which geometry applies to you is not decided by the forces acting on you. It is decided by something much stranger. What kind of thing you are and what kind of thing I am. The universe splits everything into two categories. The things that can share an identity and the things that can absolutely not. And you, my friend, are made of second kind. That single fact, not forces, not repulsion, is why your hand stops at the glass, why the floor holds you, why you are a distinct object in space at all. It's called Pauli's exclusion principle, and what it actually describes is the geometry of being. Most of us learn the same explanation. Your hand touches the table, the electrons in your skin encounter the electrons in the wood. Both are negatively charged, like charges repel, so there's a force pushing back. That's solidity. And this is true as far as it goes. So what's wrong with it? Nothing and everything. It's like explaining why you cannot walk through a wall by saying the wall is in your way. It describes the mechanism, but it doesn't answer the deeper question. Why? Is there a mechanism at all? Why does a matter arrange itself so that forces must push back? Think about what would have to be true for your hand to pass right through the table. The electrons in your hand would have to occupy the same space as the electrons in the wood. They would have to overlap, share the same location, the same energy, the same state. And what if the universe simply forbids that? Not through a force, not through energy, through mathematics, through the very definition of what those electrons are. So the real question isn't what force stops my hand. It's why can't my electrons and the table's electrons be in the same state? Exactly. And here is where it gets strange. Because some particles can share states. Some particles can pass through each other effortlessly. The difference between them is not mass or charge or anything intuitive. It's a number, spin. Spin half particles forbid each other to share states. Spin one particles not only allowed to share states, in some sense, they prefer it. That sounds arbitrary. It sounds completely arbitrary, and yet this single number, whether a particle spin is half integer or a whole integer, is the difference between being solid and being transparent, between being a matter and being light, between being a distinct object or dissolving into everything around you. This was discovered by Wolfgang Pauli in 1925, when he was only 25 years old. And his exclusion principle didn't just explain the periodic table, which it did, it revealed that the universe has two fundamentally incompatible ways for things to exist in space. Let me give you a way to actually feel this, not just understand it. Imagine a jigsaw puzzle. You have two pieces. You try to put them in same portion. They don't fit. Not because some invisible force pushes them apart, but because the geometry of the pieces doesn't allow it. The shapes themselves are exclusive. Okay, but that's just metaphor, right? Real particles aren't shaped like puzzle pieces. They are not, but they do have a geometry, not just in physical space. They have a geometry in what's called the quantum state space. A quantum state is a complete description of a particle, its energy, its position, its momentum, its spin, every property that defines it as a physical thing. And here is Pauli's rule. No two identical fermions, no two electrons, no two protons can occupy the same point in that state space. They cannot have all the same quantum numbers. So it's like each electron has to have its own unique address in this abstract space, and two electrons cannot share the same address. That's remarkably close. And the consequence is that the electrons are forced to arrange themselves into different states, different energy levels, different positions. They cannot pile up. They cannot merge. They must remain distinct, which is opposite of how we normally think about particles. You'd think identical particles would be able to overlap. They are identical after all. Right, that's the intuitive assumption. If two things are exactly same, they should be able to occupy the same place. After all, who would know the difference? The universe, apparently. The universe keeps a track somehow, and it says, no, two identical fermions cannot be one thing. So identity itself, being a specific electron, means you are forbidden from merging with another electron, not pushed away. Forbidden. Yes, and that changes everything about how we should think about solidity. When your hand meets the table, the electrons in your hand approach the electron in the wood. They try to occupy states that are already taken. They cannot. Not because there's a force field, because the geometry of what's possible doesn't include an overlap option. That path simply doesn't exist in the mathematics. Now, here is something that makes this even more remarkable. The exclusion principle doesn't just operate between atoms, stopping your hand at the table. It operates inside every single atom in your body. How? An atom has a nucleus. Around it, electrons arrange themselves into shells, energy levels. The first shell can hold only 2 electrons. Second, 8 electrons. Third, 18. Why those numbers? Why can't the third shell hold 7 or 500? I have never actually thought to ask that. Most people don't. They learn the shell structure as a fact to memorize and move on. But the reason is pure Pauli. Each shell contains a limited number of quantum states. Once those states are filled, every available address is occupied. The next electron must go into higher shell, further from the nucleus. Atom gets bigger. So the size of every atom is determined by where the last electron is forced to go because all the lower states are already taken. Exactly. The exclusion principle is the reason atoms have a size. Without it, every electron in every atom would collapse into the lowest energy state. All atoms would be the size of their nucleus. Matter would be trillion times denser. Chemistry wouldn't exist. The periodic table wouldn't exist. So the entire structure of matter, every element, every molecule, every chemical reaction, all of it traces back to this one rule, that identical fermions can't share states. All of it. The exclusion principle isn't just why your hand stops at the table, it's why your hand exists at all. Why is there a table? And this rule was discovered by a 25-year-old in 1925. Yes, Pauli was trying to explain the spectrum of atoms, why electrons occupy the energy levels they do. He realized that data made sense only if you assumed that no two electrons could share all 4 quantum states. And it was a rule that he pulled from the data before anyone understood why it was true. The deeper reason? That it falls out of the main spin statistics theorem, that it's connected to the very structure of quantum field theory. That came later. But Pauli was the first one to see the pattern. So far, we have been talking about fermions, electrons, protons, neutrons, particles that make matter, particles that cannot share states. But there is a whole other category of particles, and they follow opposite rule. Bosons. Bosons not only can occupy the same quantum state, they seem to want to. If you have a state that already contain a boson, adding another boson to the same state is not just allowed, it's statistically encouraged. Encouraged? If I give you a quantum state and ask whether a boson is likely to occupy it, the probability is higher if there is already a boson in that state. It's like bosons are drawn to each other. This is completely opposite of fermions. Fermions, that seat is taken. Bosons, there's room for everyone. And this gives them complete different behavior in the physical world. Completely. A laser works because photons are bosons. In a laser, you stimulate atom to emit photons that are all in same exact quantum state. Same frequency, same phase, same direction. The photons pile up in a single state and amplify each other into coherent beam. A laser made of electrons would be impossible. Fermions can't do what bosons can do. And the Bose-Einstein condensate? That's the same principle, right? Yes, cool certain atoms like the rubidium-87 to a billionth of a degree above absolute zero, their quantum wavelengths spread out and overlap. And because they are bosons, they all collapse into same quantum ground state. Thousands, millions of matter behaving as a single macroscopic quantum object. A fermionic version of this is impossible. The closest you get is a Fermi gas, where atoms still occupy a distinct state like a ladder with one atom per rung. So the same number, half integer versus whole integer spin, creates two completely different kinds of existence, one that separates and one that unites. One geometry of exclusion, one geometry of togetherness.